All right, welcome to today's digital class. Once again, I welcome you and I hope we are going to have a very wonderful time together today. Make sure you participate in the class. Don't watch the videos halfway. Make sure you listen to all the explanations. Take note of the explanations so that you'll be able to do any assignment given to you on the lessons. Okay, so today we want to go through another topic. But before we do that, let's take a review of what we discussed in the last class. In the last class, we discussed electricity, if you can remember very well. And those key areas we looked at were the meaning of electricity. We looked at static electricity. Beg your pardon. We look at current electricity. We look at atom. We look at how static electricity is generated, how current electricity is generated, and what an atom is. Please go through that lesson again and again and again, and the little experiment that has to carry out on it, carry it out, and I believe you have a better understanding. Good. So today we want to look at another interesting topic, still on electricity, a subtopic on electricity, I mean. And today we want to look at certain terminologies or used in electricity, or we call them electrical terms. Electrical terms. We have so many of them, but for today's class, we are going to consider about 4 of them, 4 electrical terms. Okay, and these are the ones we are going to be considering for today's class. Number 1, conductors. We're going to consider insulators, cells, and circuits. So these are the 4 terms we'll be considering for today's class. Okay, now let's start with conductors. What are conductors? I want to believe you have heard the word conductor before. Okay, the popular conductor we use are those bus attendants, those public buses attendants. Okay, we call them conductors, but here we are talking about electrical conductors, not bus conductors. Okay, so what are electrical conductors? Conductors are materials that allow electricity to flow through them easily. Let me go over that again. Conductors are materials that allow electricity to flow through them easily. Remember in the last class I told us that electricity, there are 2 types. We have current and static. The current electricity is the one that has the ability to flow from one point to the other. Okay, so for them to flow, there are materials they flow through. Okay, they flow through certain materials. So any material that allows electricity to flow through it easily is called an electric conductor. Okay, and take notes, conductors are mainly metals. All metals are conductors of electricity. They are good conductors of electricity. All metals. Okay, although they have different rates, different levels at which they conduct electricity. And I want you to put this down. The best metallic conductor, the best metal that conducts electricity is silver. Silver is the best metallic conductor. Take note. I know you'll be surprised. Why silver? But we don't usually see silver. Silver is the best. Okay, so take note of that. Then the next one is the various examples of conductors. You remember I said all metals are conductors of electricity. So we have metals like aluminum, metals like copper, metals like zinc, metals like iron, gold, silver, nickel, and so on and so forth. We have so many metals, okay, so that conduct electricity. But the popularly used metals for electricity are aluminum, copper, iron sometimes, aluminum, copper, iron, silver, okay, are commonly used as metallic conductors. So please take note of that. Now, can we just view the image of a copper? How does a copper wire looks like? You have been seeing it. Some of your electric cables at home, when you peel the rubber, okay, at the back of the cable, you see some brownish wire like this. You agree with me? Okay, so you can see those brownish wire. They are called copper. That is how copper looks like. Okay, that is copper. And we also have aluminum. Aluminum is like silvery in color. Okay, silver, just like silver too. This is aluminum wire. Okay, they are used to connect electrical gadgets. They are used to connect electrical gadgets. Please take note of this. Okay, so please take note. Now I know you want to ask a question. Why we say copper? Copper is common in most of the cables, electric cables and wires we have. So why is it not the best conductor? And it's the one that is commonly used. It is commonly used because it is cheaper than silver. Silver is the best, but silver is more expensive than copper. And that is why copper is commonly, although copper is also a very good conductor of electricity. Okay, so now let's quickly move to the next electrical term, and that is insulators. Okay, insulators. We call them insulators or non-conductors. Insulators or non-conductors. Then what are insulators? Insulators are materials that do not allow electricity to flow through them. Insulators are materials that do not allow electricity to flow through them. Okay, they resist the flow of electricity. That means electric current cannot flow through them. Okay, they are called insulators. They are called insulators. And what are they made up of? They are mainly non-metals. Okay, so non-metals in nature are insulators. And what are the various examples of non-metals we have? We have rubber, we have paper, we have plastic, we have wood, we have nylon, we have silk, and so on. Any material that is not a metal is usually regarded as an insulator. Okay, but there is an exception. Water is not metal, but water is not an insulator. We regard water as a semiconductor, not fully a conductor and not fully an insulator. So please take note of that. Very, very important. All right, so let's look at look at this diagram. This is a cable. You should have a cable like this at home. Now, if you see a cable like this, you will discover that there is usually a rubber part at the outer part of the cable. There is usually either a black rubber or white rubber, okay, used to tape the main cable. The main conductor is inside the wire. When you open it up, you see it. But the one that is used to cut it around is called insulator. Okay, so look at the diagram very well. You see thick rubber or plastic outer layer, which is what? Insulator. Okay, so most of the electrical gadgets we use at home, you see, is either they are covered with plastics, or they are covered with rubber, or they are covered with wood. Okay, so these materials are the ones that prevent us from electric shock. If not, if you touch a naked metal, which is a conductor, the electricity will flow through us, and that is what we call electric shock. Okay, but because these materials are protected with insulators, this prevent electric shock. Okay, I believe that is clear. So let's move to the next, which is electric cells. What are electric cells? A cell is the arrangement of chemical substances in order to produce electricity. When chemical substances are arranged in order for the chemical substances to produce electricity, we call it cell. Okay, we call it cell. We have two types of cell. They are wet cell and dry cell. The two types of cell are dry and wet cell. Okay, I'll show you the diagram later. Now, take note, a cell has two ends, positive and negative ends. A cell has two ends, positive and negative ends. Okay, and now take note of the last point there. A group of cell is called a battery. So when you hear battery, you know we have different types of battery. You have seen those battery before: Duracell, Tiger battery. Those batteries you use in your torchlight, used for radio and so on. Okay, that battery is made up of what? Groups of cells. So many cells make up the battery. So a group of cells is called a battery. So please take good note of that. A group of cells is called a battery. So now let's look at this diagram. I believe you are familiar with that. That is a, a battery. Okay. And we call this dry cell. So these batteries used for wall clock, used for radio, used for torchlight, they are called dry cell battery because there is a dry substance, powdery substance in them, chemical substance, not liquid. Okay, and it is this chemical substance that enable them to conduct what? Electricity. Okay, so we call them dry cell battery. The wet cell battery is the car battery. Have you seen one before? The one in daddy's car or mommy's car? Okay, please, you are not meant to touch, to play with it because it contains a very strong acid that can damage the skin. Remember, we have treated acid in the class. Remember, strong acids are corrosive, so don't play with it. But inside that battery, there is a liquid there, a very strong acid, okay, in liquid form. So that's why we call it wet cell battery. Wet cell battery. Okay, now diagrammatically, okay, using diagram in science, if you're asked to draw the diagram of a cell, okay, those of you that have been solving past common entrance questions, you possibly might have come across a diagram like this. Okay, so when a diagram like this is drawn, one end with positive sign, the other end with negative sign, it shows that what? It shows it is a cell. Okay, so the one on top is a cell, the one below is a battery. Why? Because there are two cells there. Okay, the one on the left and the one on the right. While the first one that has just one positive and one negative is a cell. So take note, that is how to represent a cell using diagram in science. So take note of that. Okay, so that is how we are going to draw the curtain of today's class. Remember what we have discussed so far in the class. Don't forget all of we have discussed today. We have discussed conductors, the terms used in electricity, conductors, insulators, cells, and in the next class, we are going to continue with these terms. Make sure you are available for the next class. Thanks for your time now. See you in the next class.